Test, test, 1, 2, 3.
We will call to order the Lee Summit Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. Could I get a roll call, please?
Mark Kitchens. Cinda Rader.
Present.
Jake Lovelace.
Present.
Dana Arth.
Present.
Donnie Funk.
Present.
Terry Trafton.
Present.
Tanya Jana Ford.
Present.
Chip Towsinski.
Present.
Randy Benbrook.
I know no changes to the agenda, so I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as published.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second for approval of the agenda. Could I get a vote, please?
Cinda Rader.
Aye.
Jake Lovelace.
Yes.
Dana Arth.
Aye.
Donnie Funk.
Yes.
Chip Towsinski.
Yes.
Terry Trafton.
Yes.
Tanya Jana Ford.
Yes.
Thank you. This is our moment for public comments. Anyone have any comments on the business of the Planning Commission outside of any of the applications we have here tonight? I see none, so we will move on to our next item of business is approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda has 3 items. Item A, application PL 2023-012. Vacation of easement, 1000 and 1010 Northwest Pryor Road, Streets of West Pryor LLC applicant. Item B, application PL 2023-16, sign application, Kaba 900 Northwest Pryor Road, Infinity Sign System applicant. And item C, approval of the February 9th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Could I get approval of the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Could I get a vote on approval of the consent agenda?
Linda Rader,
Aye.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Aye.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jana Ford,
Yes.
Chip Chilzinski.
Yes.
And the consent agenda has been approved. We will move on to our next item of business, and we will open, this item is public hearing. We will open up our public hearing. We will open up application PL 2022-217, rezoning from AG to RP3 and preliminary development plan. Colton's Crossing, approximately 74 acres located along the west side of Southeast Hamlin Road, half mile south of Southeast Thompson Drive, Hamlin Road Project LLC applicant. Anyone wishing to speak on behalf or give testimony on this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Thank you. The applicant has a presentation for us. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dustin Baxter, developer of this project, 3617 Northwest Blue Jacket Drive, Lee Summit, Missouri, 64064. We have read through the staff reports, and generally everything looks to be in line and agreement with what we've discussed. I know we've gone back and forth quite a bit. We do ask for clarification on a couple points, and I was going to defer to Matt Castor from HG Cons to clarify those.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Matthew Castor. My address is 4 Southeast Alfalfa Drive, St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm the civil engineer for the project. The two items we had in question, one was on page 9, the third paragraph down, where it talks about the water line extension. So our understanding was that the extension to the west was not going to be completed by us in lieu of the sanitary sewer improvements.
Hector, are you presenting on this one?
I will be presenting, and Sue Piles, our manager for development engineering, is also in attendance, so she'd be able to more specifically speak to that.
You want to do, since they don't really have a presentation, do you want to do your presentation, then we can loop back
That's
to
fine.
get their clarifications?
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll do that so we can get all your clarifications for you.
Sounds good, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hector Soto Jr., staff planner or senior planner. I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 18.
Exhibits 1 through 18 noted and entered into the record.
The project before you is for 74.1 acres at the far south end of the Hamlin Road corridor, where it abuts the city's southern boundary. So here you can see where there's a color change between this shade of green to the aerial here, this transition area. This marks the city boundaries. So we are sitting at the southernmost end of Hamlin Road corridor within our city limits. As you can see, the surrounding property is primarily undeveloped, mostly agricultural property. Agricultural zoning is the predominant zoning district currently for that general area. Here, kind of running diagonal through the image, you do see what is the railroad right-of-way. Hamlin Road kind of comes along here, snakes, kind of toward the middle part of the image. Here you'll see Thompson Road, where it branches off from Hamlin Road, or where the junction where Thompson Road and Hamlin Road meet. This is the old site for the landfill. Okay, so that kind of orients you to the location. So as I stated, the existing property is zoned ag. The request is for RP3 zoning, which is residential, planned residential mixed use. The total number of lots is 201. 133 of those lots will be single-family, 68 will be duplex lots. There are 7 scattered common area tracts throughout the site. Here at this northernmost end and southernmost end, you do see 2 detention areas. There is an amenity area with the subdivision pool and associated kind of cabana house, clubhouse. The development will be broken out, will be developed over 3 phases. The northernmost phase, I guess I'll back up a little bit. This kind of major road that you see here, this major road alignment is the future Hook Road alignment that is consistent with our thoroughfare master plan. So here at this northwest corner of Hamblin Road and Hook Road will be the first phase, which is composed of 52 lots. The second phase will be developing from north to south. So the second phase here will constitute 72 lots, 25 of which will be single family, 47 which will be duplex. Here in this hatched area, just kind of for illustrative purposes, I hatched in all the location of all the duplex lots. So you'll have about twice as many duplex lots as single family lots that compose the second phase. So as stated, 72 total lots in here, about 47 of those will be duplex. The third and final phase would be at the far south end. It's composed of 77 lots. It will have 56 single-family lots and 21 duplex lots. So color-coded here in the green and the kind of a violet color here are some road improvements, some of the more significant road improvements to the area, which will be broken out or developed over the first 2 phases of the development. The first the first phase of the road improvement is going to be the construction of half of the future Hook Road arterial. So they'll be required to construct a full build-out. Hook Road will be a 4-lane section. They'll be required to construct 2 lanes of those 4-lane section as part of this first phase of improvements. Hamblin Road, from this point, we're at the intersection of Hook Road, all the way north to Thompson Road, they will have to bring the road improvements up to an interim standard. So what that means is that they'll have to improve it so that the end result is 24 feet of pavement, meaning 2 12-foot travel lanes plus 6-foot paved shoulders on either side. Here in this kind of shade of blue here, this violet color, will be the phase 2 road improvements, which will be the extension of that two-lane section of Hook Road all the way down to the southern city boundary, and will also include the realignment of the existing Hook Road, the existing Hamblin Road that serves some of these developed lots just to the east. So there will be a Hamblin Court, I believe is how they currently label it, that will be coming off of the future Hook Road, and that will provide access, public road access to these developed lots here. So in total, we're looking at 269 dwelling units, 133 of those single family, 136 duplex units composed of 68 individual duplex buildings with a total density of just under 4 units per acre. Under the RP3 zoning district, the maximum density is 10 units per acre, so they're well under. In fact, an R1 zoning district allows a maximum of 4 acres, so they're still even below the density for standard R1 zoning. So here are some typical representative elevations of the single family. The single family piece will have a mixture of 1- and 2-story buildings, board and batten siding, lap siding. They'll have some masonry bases and composition roofs. The duplex buildings, again, lap siding, masonry bases, composition roof. just to kind of acquaint yourself, because we don't see necessarily all that much RP3 zoning in front of you today, just wanted to kind of let you know what those development standards are. So in the RP3 zoning district, the minimum lot size for a single-family residence is 4,000 square foot. If you look at their plan, the smallest lot that they're proposing for a single-family lot is actually around 6,000. So they're well above the minimum lot size for the RP3 zoning for a single-family home. Similarly, they are above the minimum lot size for duplex. The RP3 calls for a minimum 8,000 square feet. Their smallest lot's going to be somewhere around 10,000, a little bit more than that. The minimum lot sizes, their single-family lots do have minimum lot size of lot width of 50. Their duplexes are going to be about 75. Yeah, again, they'll be meeting those standards. The next table below kind of outlines the setbacks. So this first column here is what the RP3 calls for in terms of minimum setback requirements. The developer has proposed, they're actually kind of bumping up or being a little more stringent with their standard. The RP3 allows for the buildings or living area to be as close as 20 feet from the front property line and garages to be a minimum 25. They're proposing a minimum 25 just across the board. For side yard setbacks, the RP3 calls for a minimum 5 feet for single family and duplexes. They're proposing 5 foot for single family lots, but they're increasing the minimum separation or setback for duplexes up to 10 feet. And they're similarly increasing the minimum lot rear setback for duplexes to 30 feet, whereas the RP3 just calls for a minimum of 20. So we are looking at a smaller single-family lot and duplex development, which is allowed under the RP3 zoning. The mix of single-family and duplex uses it's consistent with the recommended land uses for the general area under the Ignite comp plan, and it does address, providing that type of housing stock does address an identified need in the comp plan for missing middle housing. The proposed development also will also require certain infrastructure improvements. I mentioned road. There'll also be water and sanitary sewer improvements for the area, which will bring them into an area that currently isn't adequately served by any of them. So it will facilitate the long-term development for that general area. And I'll touch on some of the recommended road improvements under the TIA. We do have Susan Berry and Brad Cooley here to be able to answer anything specifically. But I just did want to run down what these recommended road improvements are. So the first one, as part of phase 1, I did mention the improvement of Hamblin Road to Thompson up to an interim road standard. Like I mentioned, 20-foot pavement section, 6-foot wide paved shoulders. So that will extend from this point all the way north and then beyond. I believe it's still, from this point here, it's going to be about 2/3 of a mile of Hamblin Road that they'll have to improve to an interim road standard. At this intersection, it's Hook Road improvement. So they will also be required, as they do show on their plan, that they will be improving, be constructing two-lane section of Hook Road from their western boundary to this intersection of Hamblin and Hook. One of the recommended road improvements as part of the TIA is for a eastbound left turn lane at this intersection. So here you've got the eastbound left turn lane at this location. So these 3 road improvements are recommended as phase 1 road improvements. Phase 2, this is where this section of Hook Road from the intersection with Hamblin will be completed all the way to the city's southern boundary. There will be southbound left-hand turn lane that's required at this intersection. There will also be a westbound right turn lane at this intersection, and then there will be a westbound left turn lane here at this intersection and an eastbound left turn lane here. So that'll all be required as part of, well, it's recommended that they be required as part of the phase 2 road construction. There are 3 conditions of approval. The first one is fairly standard in our wording, that development's going to be consistent with the preliminary plans that have been submitted and have been shown to you, including the elevations. Condition number 2 is that that development shall be in accordance with the road improvements recommended in the TIA. And the third one is that there is a requirement for off-site road improvements, which will require a development agreement. I don't have, well, I didn't take a screenshot, anything that shows the existing infrastructure. So right now, the way the letter is written, it mentions in the narrative how there will be water line improvements. There'll be one where water line is going to have to connect to water line in Thompson Road in this general area and extend it down south. And the plan was showing that in order to complete a loop, that they would extend a water line west along the Hook Road alignment to ultimately connect to basically the east side of 291, all of which would be about a 1 mile-ish extension of the water line in both directions. So that's something that Sue will be able to better address. I've not been involved in any other conversations regarding that type of improvement. I'm not sure what other questions they have at this point that I need to address part of my presentation. So at this point, I'll just yield to any questions that you may have or discussion.
Okay. Do we have any comments or anything from the public at this time? And we'll move to questions. You didn't swear in, so I'll need you to swear in, and you can come down and state your name and address for the record. It'll get you there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Ranville, address 869 Southwest Rain Tree Drive here in Lee Summit. I'm here, I own a piece of property that was to the northeast of what the new proposed Hamlin Court would be. I had a few questions. We hadn't been able to get with the developer yet to get these questions answered, so I was hoping that tonight would be the opportunity.
Sure, go ahead.
So they talked about road improvements for Hamlin Road. There's a tiny bridge on Hamlin Road between Thompson Drive and down to this new section. I didn't hear that mentioned, but I would have to believe that would have to be replaced and rebuilt, considering the size of the new Hamlin Road that's proposed to be constructed.
Okay. We're just listing your questions, and then we'll get those answered for you.
Sure, perfect. Yep. Question about Hamlin Court. Is that section of road being completely rebuilt, or is it just being connected from the existing piece that will still remain there and connected to the new section of Hook Road? Is there a water line that's being run along Hamlin Court? And if so, will that be on the north or south side? So will it be on the side of all the existing properties or across the street from the existing properties? And then question about where would be the closest sewer access point? Because I understand sewers would not be coming to the section of Hamlin Court, but what would be the closest connection point for all the properties that are along the new Hamlin Court that we might be able to get access to sewers? Question about just time frame to start. I see one of the questions was phases, and I saw that was presented, so that's fine. And then there was 2 other parcels that are shown in the map, tracks D and E, which are directly across from all the developed parcels there on the Hamlin Court, and those weren't mentioned. So are they also being zoned to RP3? Are there something being considered or built for those, or is that for future something that we don't know at this time?
We will get those answered for you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant, you had a question. If you want to go ahead ask your question and we can get staff engineers to go ahead and get your question you had for something, item number 9 that was.
I think our question was just in regards to the water main extensions. So the sanitary needs improvements too, and it was our understanding in lieu of making that connection out to the west, we were gonna escrow the sanitary sewer improvements. So we just wanted clarity on whether we're actually required to make that connection to the west or not, because there was previous discussions, like I said, in regards to escrowing the sanitary sewer. And then the only other question that we have is that, on page 10, under 7.4, it just says all public infrastructure must be substantially complete prior to the issuance of any certificates of occupancy. We just want to have verification that's based on phase. So once we complete phase 1, we can go ahead and get occupancy permits for phase 1.
Okay.
I think that's all we have.
Hector, do you want to take the occupancy question? Is that, I believe their question was substantially complete on the infrastructure work first?
Right, so that would be on a per phase basis.
Okay,
Yep.
per phase, okay. We have, you want to address the water and sewer question?
Sure. Sue Piles, Development Engineering Manager. It is my understanding that the water and the sanitary are not connected in any in lieu of terms, that they are separate issues that both need handled. The water does have to be extended in the 2 directions, and the sanitary will have to be either money escrowed for it, or payment in lieu of, or downstream improvements made at the determination of the Water Utilities Department at final development plan time, or excuse me, at engineering plan time. I don't have any knowledge of the water not having to be done in lieu of making payments to the sanitary. I've not been a part of any of those kind of discussions.
Josh? No? Hector, so is that, I mean, the water has to be complete then? That's not in lieu of payment?
Based on discussions that I've been involved in, that I'm aware of, those, like Sue stated, those are separate items. I'm not aware of anything that's, if anything being done in lieu of another. So, I mean, I can't really speak to anything beyond that, beyond what I know.
So the answer would be the water needs to be completed as well as the sanitary.
Right, there would have to be a loop system, so there would have to be an extension to the north and to the west, and then any sanitary sewer improvements downstream would need to be complete as part of phase 1, as also determined by a study.
Okay, perfect. That get you the answers you needed? Okay.
May I speak?
Yeah, come on forward. We already have you.
I know Tim Dinker, which is our attorney, has been working on development plan, but I do know in no less than 2 or 3 meetings that I was in, maybe the word in lieu of, definitely 100% have to loop the water, but our understanding was is that we were completing the loop on our piece, and that we were not having to extend all the way over. We were leaving a trunk to be hit at a different time, but and I do know, obviously the sanitary, I think we've agreed to escrow or something in regards to that. But on the water, it was discussed that the cost to extend across there, along with the easements and some of the other stuff, would kill this project. So it was my understanding we were going to be allowed to loop through our property. We're still completing, but we don't have to go all the way across over towards 291. And that can, obviously be discussed a little bit more, but that is, as I stated, 2 or 3 meetings I was in, that was kind of the final, definitely have to loop, but not necessarily having to loop across the other properties.
So I guess before we dive into more questions with the commission and we get further into this, if we're at the point where we're not in agreement on what's going to happen with the water, do we need to continue this and let everybody go back to the table, or move forward with the whole process and at the end they either agree or disagree with what we're putting on the table tonight? We're open for either.
Mr. Chairman, Josh Johnson, Director of Development Services. I think you're headed down the right path. If this is a pretty fundamental disagreement, and as the applicant said, it would kill the project. So if there's a misunderstanding, we probably do need to pull back and continue. At a minimum, I would say we could try a 10-minute recess, but I'm just not sure that's going to resolve this tonight. So.
Go ahead.
Is it a UDO requirement that we extend that loop back over to the west that they're talking about, or is that just a position of development services that it's that as part of the development that they need to extend?
It's through our requirement for adequate infrastructure, and then that extends into water utilities requirements and things like that.
The reason why I was asking was I didn't know if it was something where they could say they were in disagreement of that condition, and that could be something that city council voted on, or if it was something that, no, it's a hard no, and it's not something city council can approve outside of what you guys' condition was.
I mean, they could dispute that condition for the city council, but there'd be pretty strong opposition from probably us and water utilities.
Okay, thank you.
So I think if we want to take, would you guys want to, we can call a 10-minute recess and you can talk to staff and.
That would be good. If we can't find agreement, maybe shelf it and come back after that.
Okay, you guys want to talk it through real quick? Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess and we'll come back at 5:40.
Thank you.
Mine works. Mine works.
There we go. All right. We're back in. You got your screen, David?
No, but we're okay.
Okay. So do we want to move forward or would we want to continue?
We can move forward. I was able to talk to water utility staff, and that was the agreement that the sewer improvements were so substantial and that extending the water line to the west right now it'd be going through a field. And so what the applicant said is essentially correct. We will need to modify the staff report between now and city council and just kind of make those requirements clear.
Okay. So the water line will loop at their property and not continue on to the west.
Yeah, they'll connect up through Thompson.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we will move on to the commission's questions. Commissioner Rader, do you want to start down there, please?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions for the applicant. The first one is, are these going to be?
On up, sir. Oh, sorry, I was just going to have him come up so he can answer your questions.
Are these going to be owner-occupied for sale units?
That is our intention, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And what kind of a price point do you think you're?
You know, and again, lumber's gone down, it's gone up, et cetera.
I
But,
understand.
you know, we're looking to stay on our 4 bedrooms, we're looking to stay under that 450-ish. And on our 3 bedrooms, we're even going to try and stay, you know, right around that 400 or a little
400?
bit below.
How about your duplexes?
Duplexes, depending on, you know, if someone's purchasing, and again, if there's separate sides or whatever, but call it 245, 255 a side.
That's great. And are they going to be on slabs or foundation?
They will be slabs.
Slabs, okay. All right. I think I got my other questions answered, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Commissioner Lovelace.
I guess I can kind of run through Mr. Ranville's questions with staff to start out with. There was reference to a bridge improvement. Hector, do you know specifically what bridge that gentleman was referencing, and do we know if that's going to be improved?
In looking at the aerial photo, I believe I do see where it is. It's basically it runs over the creek. I believe it's Big Creek.
Is it possible to pull up the aerial on?
And I can let Brad speak a little bit more to this, but I guess at first blush, my thought would be that, you know, just using the aerial photo, my GIS on Ellis Mapper, it looks as though the pavement section through there is about 18 feet wide. So in order to meet the unapproved road policy, it would seem to me that it would have to meet that minimum 24-foot of pavement section. So, and thus require a widening at that bridge, but I'll let our traffic engineer speak to that.
Yeah, Brad Cooley, Public Works Traffic, that's correct. What Hector said is accurate. And Ryan's gonna pull up the.
Save the day, Mr. Elam.
I gotta be useful while I'm here, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that bridge does fall within the section of road that these guys are going to be improving?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then while you're up here, there was phasing that you guys also had, and as part of phase one, it said that we were going to improve Hook Road, but we were going to improve half of Hook Road.
Correct.
But if memory serves, phase one and phase two surround that section of Hook Road. So who's going to perform the second set of improvements to widen out the rest of Hook Road, or are those existing and we only need to add the southern, southern set of that, or the southern 2 lanes of that road?
Yes, so as development continues west and as the volumes increase that use Hook Road, because currently neither side will
Sure.
generate traffic on Hook Road, it'll be expanded.
So I guess and I just may not understand it, but phase one here, phase two here, Hook Road's running right through the center of it, right? Typically, what we see in most of the things you guys bring to us is that if you're surrounding that section of ground, then you improve every bit of that road that needs to be improved right there. So is that gonna improve, is the second part of that gonna improve as phase two happens, or does that road exist, or when would that second improvement to widen out the additional 2 lanes, when would that transpire?
So as the volume and future development to the west and or east,
But then that would potentially be a city, a city improvement that we do, or we would try to have a different developer who does something else, not, obviously they're not gonna own the north or the southern part of that section, but when would that improvement happen?
on those future developments. So the right-of-way is being dedicated with this. Similar to the unimproved of Hamlin, continuing north, they're generating the traffic that needs that to be improved, they're improving it. So as the development comes in, generates, 10 coffee shops to the west, has the traffic that comes through, then they would be responsible to then do the full road width.
I understand. Okay, so potentially the next developer, potentially the city, if something happened down the road where city, okay, perfect. That explains that. Thank you for that. There was a question from the gentleman, and I think this probably goes back over to Sue, about Hamlin Court improvements and exactly if they were gonna be improving the existing road there, or if it was a brand-new road. And then if the water was gonna run up and loop up on that. So I guess maybe specifically for you, Sue, do you know about water that's potentially would be extended up there? Is that gonna happen?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the preliminary plans show that water being run on, I believe, the north side of Hamlin Court, along that length of the new road.
Okay. And Hector, maybe this gets switched back over to you, or maybe it goes back to Sue again, but what about sewer improvements, or at least stubbing up to that location? Is there anything that's planned?
I am not aware of anything at this time.
Okay. I think that takes care of me for now. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Commissioner Arth.
We also had a question from Mr. Granville about the adjacent parcels, I believe, about what they would be used for.
I believe it was tracks D and E were his.
Right. So the notes on the plan show that those tracks are just to be open space, is what the plans show. If there's any future, should in the future the developer or some other party acquire them and choose to develop them, since right now they're shown as just common area tracks, they would have to come back through a public hearing process in order to develop them, if that's the intent by someone in the future. But right now, they are just called out as open area, open space, common area tracks.
Okay, thank you. This one is for the applicant. So you mentioned the plan shows 3 different phases, and then the first phase, do you have a projected start date after everything goes through?
So, God willing, March 1st, we can break ground. Don't know if that'll happen or not, but we are obviously watching the market right now as well, just seeing what the temperature looks like. We are prepared to break ground.
Okay.
As early as March 1st, and then, we have anywhere from 6 to 9 months of infrastructure, obviously, and road improvements and stuff like that. So, maybe by the following spring, we could have the first home ready for sale.
Okay, and then what time are you looking at in between phases?
If they're moving quickly, none.
Okay, so you're
Yeah,
basing
we
it
don't have
on
any
how
reason
they,
to pause for any reason whatsoever.
Okay, and then the pool area is in phase 2, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Trafton.
I was trying to look at the setbacks. Yeah, so my question, I guess, in one sense, I understand the need and desire to have this level of housing. We need this level of housing. We need to be able to sell at price points that you're talking about for families. My only concern is when we're putting and condensing so many duplexes and sections of the development, is that parking becomes an issue for those units, because as we know, and I can't remember, do you remember what like the square footage is for those, each side of those duplexes? I was trying to find it, but.
They're around 1,300 square foot per side. I'll have to pull those up. We're building quite a few different ones right now, but I'm pretty sure those are right around 1,300 square foot per side.
Okay, so, I mean, is that like a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom?
3-bed, 2-bath.
So when you look at 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,300 square feet, generally you're not parking in the garage. You're using that as storage. Are they gonna have basements?
Each one of these would have a 2-car garage, so they will have a 2-car garage to each one, a large garage, one garage, single garage door, of course. And then, I'm sorry, as far as basements, they will not have basements.
What's the apron on the driveways? How far are the driveways? Is it 1-car length or 2?
So you'll have basically 2-car length driveways and 22 foot across on each side, and then you'll have a double-car garage on each one.
Okay, well, that actually is pretty decent, so you would think that would potentially, allow for people not crowding the streets, but.
Kind of what we're hoping for. We looked at the lot sizes, we looked at the minimum requirements, we kind of tried to go above those. We live in Lee Summit ourselves, our families are here, we understand, that we want to have our kids be able to graduate from college and buy a home that they can afford and not have to move to another city. And, if they can't afford to buy, they have a place to rent that's close to grandparents and parents and things like that. So, I mean, is it ever going to address it all? Never, but we're hoping to build a nice community that is affordable for people that want to stay in Lee Summit and kids that want to stay in Lee Summit, and even, parents as they downsize to get something a little smaller to stay close to the kids that bought the big house. So that's kind of our thought process.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's 1 car on each side, right?
So we have, we're going to be, and these are obviously elevations, but our goal is to have the 2-car garages. I think they're a 16. We're building some of them right now, and they're going very well, and they're going quickly. But they have and I apologize, Dave. Do you remember how big those garages are? What's that? They're like 600 square foot or something like that. But it's a 2-car garage on each side.
Oh, okay. Because what I'm looking at here, it looks like which doesn't matter. I mean,
They're preliminary elevations, but
yeah.
on record, we are putting 2-car garages on each side. So.
Well, I think that will help with my concern just about parking.
And people driving down the street and having cars on the sides of both sides of the street.
Like they're gonna be, I mean, I personally, I live in a small lot neighborhood, so I'm familiar with the parking on the street that happens. And so I know this is not a small lot neighborhood, and the lot sizes are pretty decent. So I was just more concerned about the driveways and the garages and where people are gonna be parking. And if it's 3 bedrooms, then a lot of times you'll end up having 3 cars. So.
And let me restate too, just depending on the plot plan, our goal is to have a 2-car length. That doesn't always work in every lot, but that is our goal, of course.
Okay. Well, I
2-car garage for sure. Yes, sir, sorry.
I like the fact that you're trying to bring this price point in, because we need it in Lee Summit, and I think that it'll sell, even though right now it's kind of isolated. At some point in time, it'll be kind of in a nice location, so.
Kind of our hope too. We've been looking at the future plans around there as well, so.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Jenna Ford.
Thank you, Chair. This is also another question for you, sorry. Did you talk a little bit about the specific timing for the phases? This question is directly related to my curiosity of why the clubhouse and pool is in phase 2 and not phase 1.
So part of that is just it's financial. It's the amount of improvements that we're doing to the roads and the sewers and some of the other things. And being able to work through phase one and have the profits from those sales to be able to move into phase two.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuzinski.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question for staff. And Brad, you could, how far north are the improvements on Hamlin Road? How far north are they going that they have to?
To Thompson.
To Thompson, okay. Then those improvements, they have to be done by phase one?
Correct.
And my only other question is just make sure, and I think we've already talked about this, but just make sure that when the plan comes through that the geometrics are checked for Hook Road. I just want to make sure that that's set up for the
Right.
future.
Horizontal geometry will all be checked at final engineering plans.
Excellent, thank you. Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. I have a couple of questions, and I'll loop back to my commissioners here. On, when you, this is for the applicant. You mentioned on the duplexes, they're 400,000 aside?
Cost-wise?
Yeah.
No, about 225. 225 to 255.
So someone could buy this and turn it into rental property?
If someone could buy a duplex and turn it into a rental property?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we can necessarily do to stop.
Are you gonna have a HOA that could put in that there's no rental?
We've talked about it. It hasn't been a requirement, but we are gonna have an HOA there for sure. The question that we have is, that's been posed in some of our meetings when we talked about doing that versus not, is we're also talking about people that can't afford to buy a home at today's interest rates, and they still want to live in Lee Summit. And again, we're thinking of, family members that just graduated college and are now moving to other places and getting smaller places to live and not in their families, et cetera. Do we want to take away the ability to rent altogether, or do we want to limit it to long-term rentals versus, someone being able to Airbnb, for instance, or, with some of the other planned stuff that's going on around there with, if it goes through, there would be an opportunity where someone might want to Airbnb their places. So we had kind of looked at keeping it to long-term rentals versus short-term rentals, or allowing anything like that, but definitely didn't want to take renting completely off the table.
If you turn it over to an HOA and the HOA says, we don't want rentals, what kind of position is this gonna put you in?
Me personally, it's not going to put me in a position. I think that these are going to sell very quickly, and I think whether they're single-family attached, duplex for rentals, or otherwise, that they'll go pretty quickly. And our goal is to keep that price point, whereas maybe they can't afford a 350, 375, but they can afford a 225, half.
Sure, thank you. On the pool area, this is both for the applicant and for the staff. There's 13 spaces required, you're applying, you want 32. Can we get another ADA parking spot in there to meet the required parking spaces of 2? We only have 1.
I defer to Matt on that. I personally wouldn't see why not, but I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, I definitely don't see an issue. Our layout was very preliminary. It probably makes the most sense to have, 2 ADAs with an unloading zone between the two. That wouldn't be difficult at all.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I have is for staff or for the applicant, if we're gonna do some cleanup in the language in the staff report, their traffic study is stamped by a Kansas engineer. I think we need that by Missouri, correct?
That is correct. It was missed by staff. I did look it up in our short recess, and Nathan is licensed in Missouri, so we can have them
Okay,
have their engineer stamp that.
perfect. Commissioner, that's all I have.
Chairman?
Yes,
Can I ask a follow-up real quick
sure.
for staff? Hey, Brad, follow-up. I was just looking at that, and you said the improvements are supposed to stop at Thompson, and there's a short piece. It seems like the improvements have already been made to the railroad tracks north of there, but then there's gonna be a short piece of just the railroad tracks and south of the railroad tracks at Thompson that aren't gonna be improved. Is that a city project? Because it just seems.
Possibly,
Like
yeah. I
it's
think
a
it's
small
outside
gap.
of the unimproved road policy to ask the applicant to do that.
Okay, because it's gonna be interesting to have a real short section of road that's so narrow, and then you got this big road. That's really gonna be basically the ingress and egress for that subdivision is there, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rader, you had a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I guess I'll ask the applicant another question and then staff. Okay, so, and I want to make a comment as well, but are you going to build this out on your own? Or are you going to engage other builders to buy lots?
They would be under our umbrella, but we
Okay.
would be building on our own, yes, ma'am.
On your own, okay. And then a comment would be, just because I'm a real estate agent, but I love the fact that you're doing something that's affordable.
Commissioner
with the
Rader,
Yes,
let's wait until after we get out of
okay, all right,
public
I won't
hearing.
say that right now. But then I had a question for staff.
Go ahead.
Okay. Isn't RP3, can you have a multifamily apartment with RP3 zoning?
Not apartments, you can have single family through fourplexes. However, development of the property is tied to the plan presented and approved by ordinance. So this plan only shows single family and duplex. So although the RP3 zoning does allow for up to fourplexes, they'll be tied to the plan that's presented in front of you.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you, Hector. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, I had a follow-up question for Mr. Cooley around I mean, I know this is out of the scope of this project, but if they're improving the road, it's kind of all the way up to Thompson Drive. I mean, obviously, you're trying to push traffic out to 291, which I can see that. I know people are going to still travel north on Hamlin Road. Did that cross-section of that railroad, did that get fixed so it's safer to travel across? I mean, does it have like better, I know we've had some bad accidents at that crossway.
Yeah, so we did recently have Evergy install a light there, and I believe some additional signage has been installed.
It is signaled? Okay, well, that helps. Because I know people are gonna go up Hamlin Road, and so, until we tell them they can't do that with that crossway at some point. So I don't know that we ever will, but, okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Lovelace.
Just a quick question for staff. There's, in the report, there's reference to the sewer improvements, and we heard, so we heard here that there was some pretty considerable sewer improvements that were going to happen. In the staff report, I think it said that there was actually 2 different existing lines there. Could you just explain to me a little bit more about what the sewer improvements entail on the site?
The sewer improvements that need done are off-site, downstream, and there are, the sewer study has indicated that there's improvements needing made for adequate capacity, and those will be finalized as the engineering plans come in. I don't know that any specific determination has been made at this time yet, but we'll be working with water utilities to get that tied down so that when they submit their sanitary sewer offsite plans or payment in lieu of, they'll know exactly what it's for.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. So probably a Mr. Bushak question, do we need to change anything in our recommendation? We know there is just simple cleanup in the staff report that will happen, as well as getting their revised traffic study.
So what I just clarified with Josh is that the language change that needs to occur is just in the staff report, not in the conditions. So I don't think there's anything that you need to do
Okay.
And I'll pause and look behind me to see if that's. I don't hear. Yep, nothing for you to change in the conditions, and the discussion in the staff report on page 9 will be changed before it goes to the city council.
Okay, perfect. So I will close the public hearing and open up for discussion and comments. Commissioner Rader, I knew you had a comment. Go ahead.
Yes, I did. Okay, I just wanted to say that I love this project. I love the fact that you're making affordable homes. We need them so badly here. And I know that you don't want to keep people from necessarily renting homes in your restrictions, but I would think that short-term rentals, no, because that can cause lots of problems. And I would hope, just this is a comment, but just I would hope that you wouldn't sell packages of duplexes because we need them so badly for the people, for these young kids, first-time buyers that are coming into the market. They need homes here, and we want them to live here and start here. So thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovelace, any comments? Commissioner Arth?
I would just say that I would echo what Commissioner Rader is saying.
Commissioner Trafton, you good? Commissioner Janiford? Commissioner Tuzinski? Thank you. I will look for a motion. Commissioner Janiford, could you give us a motion on this, please?
Yes, Chair. I move to recommend approval of application PL 2022-217, rezoning from AG to RP3 and preliminary development plan, Colton's Crossing, approximately 74 acres located along the west side of Southeast Hamblin Road, half-mile south of Southeast Thompson Drive, Hamblin Road Project, LLC applicant.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote, please?
Linda Rader,
Aye.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Aye.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Janiford,
Yes.
Chip Townsendski.
Yes.
And the application has been recommended for approval. We will move on to our next item of business, item B, and open up continued application PL 2022-435, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2022 Lee Summit Parks Master Plan, City of Lee Summit applicant. Anyone wishing to give testimony or speak on behalf of this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Thank you. Mr. Casey's going to come down and join us.
Good evening. Steve Casey, Superintendent of Park Planning and Construction. Would like to enter in Exhibits 1 through 8.
Exhibits 1 through 8 noted and entered into the record.
Thank you. Good evening. I look forward to presenting our findings on the Park Master Plan. Recently completed information that we worked through with staff and our community as a whole. This is kind of following up on our 2017 Park Master Plan. What we sought to do was also kind of continue the momentum of the 2021 Ignite Comprehensive Plan update. So we kind of piggybacked on that. We also wanted to take a snapshot of where we were with our goals and priorities from the 2017 Master Plan. More importantly, I think we wanted to establish kind of a roadmap for parks for the next 10 to 15 years. And as always, we want to engage with our community and hear from them about what they would like to see with future parks, trails, facilities, programming, and funding. The process for us started back in October 2021. It was about a 9-month process. We worked with Shockey Consulting, which you're very familiar with. It helped facilitate the Ignite Comprehensive Plan update. So we worked with them. They helped facilitate our process. A lot of input from city staff, park staff, our community partners, and our park board. And then, as I mentioned, we wanted some engagement from our community as a whole. So we went through a 2-month survey questionnaire process, sent out surveys electronically, and held task force meetings in the summer of 2022. So kind of a quick overview of the progress that we made on the 2017 plan, which established 8 goals and 33 priorities. Under these, the following goals, those priorities were kind of spread out amongst these bullet points that we identified: neighborhood park acquisition and development, neighborhood park renovation, community outdoor facilities, community indoor facilities, trails and greenways, programs and events, operations and maintenance, and then administrative. What we found is kind of our snapshot looking back over this kind of 5-year period is we did make significant progress. And in a lot of the areas, there was still some areas that we wanted to follow up on. Most of that is summarized in the report, and that report is, we've posted it to our website, and I think it was also included in the exhibits tonight. Our engagement process was kind of an overview of that timeline. We held some workshops, again, mentioned working with city staff, park staff, our partner agencies, and then we had some working sessions with our park board in February 2021. We did some SWOT analysis through community survey. Our 1,100 responses between March and April of this past year was our largest survey response that we had ever had. So we were pleased with the community feedback. And then from that, we asked our survey respondents if they were interested in participating in in-person task force meetings. And so we had participation at that level and with a more focused, giving some focused attention to the topics such as parks, trails, natural resources, park programming, and funding. One area that's kind of want to touch on a little bit is our trends, industry trends. COVID certainly shed a lot of light on the benefit of parks. What we did is we paid some attention to Google mobility and looking at how people were moving around during that time. Parks were off the charts, really, in terms of usage and activity. One area also that we pay attention to trends-wise is the value of technology in parks and recreation. We use it on the recreation side. We use it on the operation side and planning, whether it be online registration, e-gaming, virtual classes, or we are now in the process of implementing an asset management system, a work order system for us to kind of streamline our maintenance and management of parks and facilities. The value also we wanted to pay close attention to, and the socialization of citizens, whether it be dog parks, cultural events, those types of activities that bring people together are very important. And we, as a staff, have a working group of people from all divisions of our department that look at industry trends. We attend conferences, continuing education. We have a trends team. I would say that two areas of particular, as I look back on how we've addressed trends, is back in 2004, we built our first dog park. And at the time, that had not really been heard of. So we were one of the first communities to have a dog park in the metro area. Now it's pretty much commonplace to see a dog park in any given community. And then in 2015, we were the first ones to build pickleball courts. So we like to think that we stay on top of trends. Pickleball is obviously, as many of you I'm sure know, is a rapidly growing sport. I think I saw statistically there are 33 million people that play the sport at some level, and that's an incredible number. So we are, as a department, we monitor and watch those trends, and we adapt as this plan kind of shows. So I do want to touch on getting into the numbers aspect of our study. we are at a point, a snapshot of where we are from a parks acreage standpoint. We stand at about 1,250 acres of city park ground. That breaks down to approximately 12.5 acres per 1,000 residents. So that gives us a benchmark, a level of service standard that as we look towards the future, we don't want to drop below that. We want to try to maintain that or exceed that level of service to the community. Currently, 72% of our residents are within a half mile of a park. Now, that does not include HOA parcels or trails. Our goal is to get that up near 80 or 85%. 2040, we are looking, so 20 years from now, we're looking at significant population growth. The projections put us at about 140,000. PRI properties include, and that number I think is probably closer to 4,000 acres if you include the north and the south. So based on that, we need to be at a point where to maintain those level of service standards, our community needs another 500 acres of park ground. This is a slide to kind of represent, and I want to preface this a little bit. This was an exhibit prepared to kind of get a better understanding of specifically the PRI property and some of the areas that, based on a half-mile service area, this exhibit kind of represents a coverage map of potential or future parks. Like the comp plan, I think this is obviously subject to change, but represents our sort of planning look at where we would anticipate some of in the case of these smaller starbursts, more neighborhood parks. The larger starbursts on the left, or the center on the exhibit on the left, would be more of a community or regional park. So you can see what we're attempting to do is try to create some coverage of these areas, both in the PRI properties north and south. So through the process and working with staff, and working with our community task force, we wanted to establish also continuing and moving forward the goals and priorities from the 2017 plan. We wanted to establish some new priorities, new goals through the workshop and task force meetings. Of those priorities, I think I want to touch on a couple of them, and really, as I mentioned, setting aside land for trails and future parks will need to be a priority for us as part of the development process. And so we're working on some things behind the scenes with our park board, looking at land dedication ordinance or park impact fees. Those are things that have been discussed with the park board and the city council in some previous meetings. We also want to continue to create destination parks and accessible parks. I think a good representative example, and create those parks as an economic engine or an economic development strategy. I think a good example of that is the Streets of West Pryor project and the redevelopment of Lowenstein Park. That's an extremely active, vibrant park. And so those types of, if you want to call them partnerships or arrangements where we are working to mutually benefit each other, complement each other, I think is something that we want to continue to work on. We want to create city parks that are entrance parks. Specifically, we are surrounded by county parks and resources and lakes, so we want to work with the county and an attempt to partner and create entrance parks into those regional parks. Want to also create unique facilities and programming in partnership. We want to, in partnership with other agencies and other existing facilities, I think, and I touched on that a little bit with the economic development strategy. Parks connectivity. Connectivity was a word that came up repeatedly in our surveys and our task force meetings. And when I think what they're getting at is that they want to be people want to be able to move freely and not be restricted necessarily by having to get in a vehicle and move around and go to parks and go to retail areas. I think they want to be connected. They want their have good access to trails, and so connectivity is important. We also, another item that came very loud and clear was protecting and preserving our high-value resources so that development is responsive to that, and that we set aside and preserve parks and open space into the future. Also want to continue our high level of maintenance. I think survey data has indicated that we do a very good job of maintaining our existing parks. That will continue, and we will seek to make sure that that is a high priority for us, and going even beyond just industry standards. Our community demands and deserves that, so we will continue to do that. And then we want to put in place some mechanism or some creative funding sources that they are diverse, sustainable, meet the demand, meet the needs of the community. As I mentioned, we need to figure out to maintain those level of service standards. There are significant acquisitions that will need to be made from protecting park space, those 500 acres, where they come from, how will we go about, where will they be, how will we acquire them, and so forth. So our next step is, of course, tonight we are seeking adoption of our Parks Master Plan into the city's comprehensive plan documents approved by the Planning Commission. We are continuing to engage elected city officials on some funding mechanisms that I'd mentioned. We want to continue to work with the city development staff and PRI to set aside parkland within property reserve that strategically aligns with our comp plan and development patterns. Then we want to continue with the goals and priorities that I mentioned in the 2017 report and our current master plan. And then focus on community priorities from what we heard from the public. And I think particularly park development in the south, continue to provide high-quality neighborhood park amenities, and then the preservation of open space, I think, are some of the really key takeaways for us going forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I don't see any comments from the public because everybody left. So I will open up to anyone from the commission. Commissioner Rader, you got any questions? Commissioner Lovelace? Commissioner Ars?
Tonight's hearing for Colton's Crossing in that area of Lee Summit just makes me ask the question, are there some immediate future plans for parks near that area?
I think, and you probably have had some dialogue or information related to some of the proposed development of the redevelopment of the Shamrock project. That is potentially an opportunity to look at some additional park and open space or dedicated park space. On the east side of 291, I think as development continues to occur or PRI property comes online, then we're hoping, you can see kind of on that exhibit, we would like to provide some level of neighborhood park amenities. It will be somewhat development driven in that does it lend itself more towards a community or destination park, or is it a neighborhood park that serves a large residential area? So we are, we kind of scour the whole geographic area of Lee Summit in terms of where our opportunities are. I think the PRI property certainly is something that we want to make sure that we're ahead of some of that proposed development that will occur in the future.
Okay, thank you. And then this is going to be a weird question. This fall, I hiked my first 14er in Colorado, and us flatlanders were made fun of where we're from, but is there a trend in park development in places like the Midwest that they are developing, or is there the technology to develop parks that provide training opportunities with, of course, you can't get the altitude, but maybe simulating the altitude, the steepness?
Yeah. That is challenging. I mean, I think with our geographic area and our topography, I know mountain biking in sort of this extreme environment. We do have we've been told by our experts that we have sort of a novice level kind of mountain biking, hiking trail that we've implemented with a not-for-profit group out at Legacy Park. And that has been received pretty well in terms of usage, but I think we are challenged a little bit by topography and working areas, I think. But I would say that the project that we have been kind of working on and shared some information on is related to the repurposing of the landfill for parks use. And there's some opportunities there to do some interesting things that we've spent a little bit of time researching, whether they're they're called flow courses, where you get on a bike and you kind of navigate or kind of work down the hill or work up the hill. So there's some opportunities there because of the created topography to implement some of that as well.
I kind of was thinking the same thing, and I know, and I've skied in, I think it was Minnesota, and they do that with landfills there.
Right, yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Trafton.
I have some questions. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate this information. And I think it definitely falls in line with the Ignite plan that we all spent a lot of time on and developing. And so I appreciate the efforts to kind of mirror that. My questions are around, you mentioned fees for, I can't remember what you called it. There was a specific title, some kind of a fee you're looking at for some park utilization? Or
So looking towards the future, we're looking at mechanisms to, through ordinance or some kind of fee assessed to development, to either acquire land through a fee in lieu of, or something in an ordinance that could be established where the developer sets aside park or open space for parks use. So those are being considered at the park board level and staff level. So we've had some discussions with the city council and the park board in joint session back, I think it was back in October. We had shared some of those preliminary findings. We're still sort of in the research
something
phase
that
of that.
would, an ordinance that would require developers to set aside certain percentage of development for green space, park area.
And it is
and
not
or
a
a fee
right.
or something.
It's not
a fund.
not a new concept. I think Kansas City, Missouri's had something in place for probably 30 or 40 years. Other metro communities have a parkland dedication ordinance. On the Kansas side, there are park impact fees, which pay based on a square footage or a number of dwelling units, pay a fee during the building permit process that goes to, and they can be set up a lot of different ways. They can be mechanisms to pay for land or development of parks that are within proportionate geography of those. So development is paying for park development in an adjacent area that it's not being paid for. Somebody that lives up north is not paying a tax or being assessed for a park that's being built that they are likely not going to use as much as something close by. So it's very proportional to the development areas.
And so my other question is around financing. You mentioned, acquisition of land, et cetera. I don't know that everybody really understands park funding or the parks funding in Lee Summit, but could you talk about that a little?
So our funding specific to capital projects is a 1/4 cent sales tax. And then we also collect revenue from the use tax. That generates approximately, and don't quote me on this because I'd want to get our budget but approximately $3.5 to $4 million a year. That goes specifically to capital projects. So that helps us build a roadmap to improving our neighborhood parks, building new parks, building facilities, building trails, all those kind of goals that we had outlined or have outlined in our master plan. So that, while it probably seems like a pretty significant amount of money, it takes a lot of money to build these neighborhood parks. And when you're looking at acquisition, it's very difficult for us to, within those budget parameters or the revenues that we collect, to look at purchasing property. If we talked about, we put the metrics to acquiring 500 acres of land that we need to maintain a level of service standards at $30,000, $40,000 an acre, that number gets beyond what we're capable of looking at in terms of acquisition. So this fee or land dedication ordinance is another mechanism for us to establish and set aside land so we can use those revenues from sales tax to build those parks once the land is acquired.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was curious about is you've identified some big goals as far as acquisition for parks, and I think I saw something around community centers, like a southern community center or northern community center. And you had some numbers attached to that. I was curious, what's the cost to do everything you want to do in this plan? I mean, I don't see that kind of a number.
We have it in our capital improvement plan, so we have a pretty good idea of what we can expect to generate in terms of revenues related to the sales tax and use tax. But we're also impacted by inflationary cost increases and construction costs, so the two almost sort of cancel each other out. And so that is a consideration. We do have a pretty good roadmap of what we're looking to do project-wise in our CIP plan, and that gets approved through the budget process.
Oh, okay.
So our 5-year snapshot right now is addressing a number of neighborhood park renovation projects. A big project that we're looking at right now is the construction of an indoor sports complex. Indoor field house, probably in the neighborhood of 100,000 to 120,000 square feet. Our estimate of cost of that is probably, we're hoping to keep it in the $20 to $25 million range, but it's a byproduct of the demand within our youth sports programs and our ability to generate tourism dollars from outdoor, from tournaments that are held in our community where people are coming in, whether it's volleyball or basketball or soccer. This facility would be a multi-sport, multi-court, indoor volleyball, indoor basketball, indoor turf. We're tying it into a community center theme, so we'll complement our other membership facilities and have fitness areas and things like that, community rooms. We're in the process right now of kind of wrapping our arms around what it's going to become, where our priorities are. We're doing some market analysis. We've spent some time touring some of these facilities in Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska. So we're trying to that helps us kind of wrap our arms around what do we want it to become, but we really need to work with a marketing, somebody that looks at these facilities and kind of based on our population, based on our existing facilities, what we could expect to see in terms of people coming in for events and tournaments. And so this is, you know, that this is a big project on our radar screen. This will be the biggest project we've ever undertaken in terms of a facility.
Thank you for that. I know, I know, it looks like there's a regional stormwater lake proposed in the southern section of the city. And are you looking at that as a potential for one of the larger kind of like a legacy or now the Lovell Center?
I think as we look at that, I think everything is sort of conceptual. I think yes, it would be, if we're looking at doing a community park or a regional park down south, it would be similar to Legacy Park, not similar in size, but similar in programming than something like a regional stormwater facility that could be a recreational amenity as well. Makes a lot of sense, but a lot would have to go into that. These are very conceptual kinds of concepts and ideas right now. So, but yes, the idea of the thought would be sort of a mini Legacy. Yeah.
So kind of back to my question around funding, you don't have a sense of what the price tag is for everything that you'd love to do in this plan. You said there's a capital improvements plan. Does that include everything in here? I mean, have you guys started, was that part of this process or is that a separate process, I guess?
It is a separate process. I think we wanted to keep the process to dive in with our user task force groups, to dive into the real hard dollars and cents of, well, we had conversations about, so here are our revenue sources, but here are some of what we're seeing in the market in terms of our development costs. We didn't get into the real hard dollars and cents. That is more kind of internal to staff level, and then we work through that with through the budget process and the capital improvement plan.
So what would you project? Was there is this like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, 2040? I think I mentioned.
I think it's a 2040 plan. So it goes beyond and outside of our current funding, which sunsets in 2032. It was approved by the voters in 2017 for 15 years, the quarter-cent sales tax. It will sunset in 2032. So we will have to go back to the voters. And we intentionally do that because we want there to be community, we want there to be accountability in what we're doing in terms of our projects. And that's why we update this probably every 5 to 10 years. We want to get some benchmarking of how we're performing on our previous goals and priorities. And we're doing pretty well, but there's some things that are still on the list and now we've established some new priorities. And they're not project specific necessarily, but they do align with sort of the overall, whether it be neighborhood parks. I think one thing that we heard and is community wanted to see, there was a lot of feedback from people that lived on the south side of Lee Summit and more growing areas. Well, we're somewhat underserved from parks standpoint in that area. And so that we heard that that needed to be a priority for us. So, but the dollars and cents, we didn't really get into the specifics on that.
I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I think everyone loves the parks that we have in this community. And yeah, if we can, I think there's an acute sense of wanting more of those bikeways and just areas for different types of recreation. And I think you guys are adapting to that. I also think it's important to share, like, it costs money to do this, and it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, over several years.
I think that was important. It was an important message to convey. We had a number of breakout sessions in our task force meetings, and one of the sessions was funding and letting people know. I generally think most people don't know where the funding comes from to do these park projects. And so it was a little bit of an enlightening process to educate them, but also say, hey, while we're supported by the taxpayers, there are things that we need to be looking to the future that we are probably a little bit constrained under our current fiscal revenues. And that we need to look at alternative means, whether it be some type of ordinance, or a impact fee or something to put all the pieces in place to do what we want to do in this plan.
I think adding parks is important, but people don't realize when you add amenities, it now costs you more to maintain them.
Exactly.
And keep them up to date. But thank you for your time.
Sure.
Commissioner Jana Ford.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Tuzinski.
Thank you.
You. Nothing else from the commission? I will close up the public hearing and look for a motion. Real quick, Mr. Casey, thank you for an awesome job that you guys do over at our Parks Department. It's amazing. Commissioner Rader.
I thought it was mine. Take it.
Oh, excuse me.
You're going to move to approve the resolution that's right after this agenda item.
Sorry, I jumped ahead. Yes, Commissioner Trafton.
You want me to go ahead and make that motion?
No.
Yep.
Okay. I move to direct staff to present a resolution adopting the 2022 Lee Summit Parks and Recreation Parks Master Plan update as an amendment to the City of Lee Summit's Ignite Comprehensive Plan as amended.
We need to go the one above. We need to
Sorry.
approve the comprehensive plan first. And
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I retract that previous comment. I think you were
Right.
trying to direct me to do that, but maybe I'm a little foggy. Okay. I need,
we will recommend approval of continued application.
I don't think I
Just
have
a motion to approve, not a
Excuse me,
recommendation.
a motion to approve application.
Oh, I make a motion to approve application PL 2022-435, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2022 Lee Summit Parks Master Plan, City of Lee Summit. How's that?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
He said no, I did it wrong.
Sorry to interrupt. We need a motion to approve the resolution, which is item 7A.
I thought I just read that.
So we don't have to approve the application we had in public hearing?
No. Just,
Just the resolution.
yeah, the resolution is your action item.
Okay.
Is that mine?
Isn't that what he just read? I'm confused now too, actually.
Yeah.
I
we
just
were-
read that.
We were doing the application and then we were going to the resolution since we were,
You don't approve it's a comp plan amendment, so it's done by resolution. So if you saunter on down to agenda item 7A, that's what you'd read for the motion.
okay.
Well, I was looking at my little cheat sheet that was given to me, so that was clearly.
Then go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I move to direct staff to present, no?
No,
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Okay.
Literally what he
That's
read.
what it said.
That's literally what Terry read.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He read this, application
First
2022.
time he read, I moved to direct staff to
Oh.
present a resolution. So
Yeah.
is that,
I'm not sure what's on paper as far as all of these various potential motions.
I think
The only action item that we need from you is a motion to approve the resolution.
so you,
Not directing staff to do anything. We've already, the
Okay,
resolution.
you have this proposed planning commission motion,
I'm not
7A.
sure what that says, I'm sorry.
7A.
7A.
Yeah.
Okay. So I move to approve, correct? Okay, I move to approve a resolution number 2023-01, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, adopting the 2022 LSPR Parks Master Plan update as an amendment to the City of Lee Summit Ignite Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
motion and a second. Let's vote. Go ahead. Sorry, Jeannie.
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jana Ford,
Yes.
Chip Townsend.
Yes.
And the resolution has passed. Guess whose turn it is now? You've been waiting so patiently. Fire away, Mr. Elam.
All right. Chair, members of the commission, thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm Ryan Elam, Assistant City Manager, and I have Major Nicole Walters here with me, and we're incredibly honored and incredibly excited to talk with you about a little something that's going on in April. So this coming April, there is a no tax increase general obligation bond election on April 4th, and I've got a few handouts that I'm going to give to everybody real quick, and then I'll walk through a few things. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on the document cam too. All right, we'll see if I can remember how to use this. All right, there we go. So on April 4th, we are proposing 3 separate questions for the voters' consideration. This is a little bit different than maybe what we've done in the past. In the past, we've had, every couple of years, every 2 to 3 years or so, we'll have a bond election come up before us. And those have typically been in the range of somewhere around $10 to $20 million at a time. So it's been kind of a pretty incremental approach to addressing the needs of the community. But as you all are very aware, and if it's right in line with the conversation that you just had around the comprehensive plan, we've done a lot of planning lately, and we have a new strategic plan, we have a new comprehensive plan, and we have a growth trajectory and expectations of what the community is going to be looking like in the next 20 years. And we were at a point where we felt that it was the right time to look a little bigger picture on some of these bond issuances. So we are proposing, the city council and has placed on the ballot what I'll refer to as a comprehensive plan, for lack of a better term, of a number of different projects. This is $186 million total amongst the 3 questions in 3 key areas: emergency preparedness, transportation, and then our city facilities, reinvestment in our current assets. Each one of these has a number of different projects that we can get into a little bit deeper, but all of these items are directly tied and directly related to the strategic plan and comprehensive plan, and the ability for us as a community to meet the needs of the community through capacity building, through taking care of what we own right now, as well as really focusing on those items that the citizens have told us are most important to us. Back when we did the last citizen survey, I thought one of the really interesting things was that the top 3 items, that 90% of the respondents in the last citywide survey indicated that they were very satisfied or satisfied with the quality of life in Lee Summits. But they identified as the highest investment priorities: 80% quality of police services, 74% quality of fire and emergency medical services, and 57% maintenance of streets, municipal buildings, and facilities. Those are the items right here that we are hoping to address with this plan. Now, $186 million, that is a lot of work, a lot of big projects on here. All of those projects won't happen simultaneously. Each one of these projects will still need to go through the the CIP, the capital improvement planning process. And what this ballot measure really does is it obtains voter approval for the authorization to issue those bonds. It doesn't automatically issue those bonds. So as they get folded into the CIP, there will be kind of several phased bond issuances to get up to that total for those projects. So that way we're maintaining a steady debt levy. So the levy is broken into two parts, an operating part and a debt service part. And what we're talking about with the capital side is that debt service portion of the levy. With that, I can pause and answer questions, and then, or I can turn it over to Major Walters. She'll get into a little bit of the more specifics on some of the exciting police and fire projects that we got. And then I can talk a little bit more on some of the transportation projects and the general facilities projects.
He looks nicer than you. Let's have her.
All right, there we go. I like it.
All right. Major Nicole Walters with the Police Department. Obviously not Chief Forbes, filling in for him tonight. He's got a prior commitment. But one of the things I'll touch on to start is the Joint Operations Center. That's kind of a joint center for police, fire, public works, and ITS. That building, the layout for that building will be just southwest, on the southwest corner there of the police department. There's a green space. And that's where that would be. Looks like maybe number 1, number 3, number 1. But that would house fire administration, training, emergency operations center, public safety communications, which would include both fire and police, and the information technology services. Not all of them, but a certain set. I'm not sure exactly which group that would include. It would also have a hardened lower level. Having the police and fire communications housed together will provide efficiency for the city, reduce some of our cost and footprint. There was also a study done in 2021 through Mission Critical Partners that indicated that we needed to do that in order to make our public safety communication services work together during critical incidents. So that's one of the big things for that. And it allows for expansion of the communications services when necessary. And then for the police department, I'll get into a couple of the big things that are things that we would propose. The first would be our phase 2 of the police department building. In 2021, we finished an interior renovation of the police department that took care of some security concerns we had with the courts. And it also allowed us to reconfigure the interior areas to allow for future staffing growth within the police department. Now that that's done, we, during our renovations and over time, we've discovered some exterior concerns that we need to address. There's some aging systems within the building. So this would be the phase 2 that I'm speaking of. That would be replacement of the roof and updating the HVAC system. Both of those would be proposed. They're the original systems that were with the building when it was built back in 1999. The HVAC system, for example, has a coolant system that's no longer supported. So we would do that. We would also add space to allow for vehicle evidence processing and collection, and a bay to provide secure storage for vehicles that have been used in crimes. We've run into situations where we've had multiple vehicles that we've needed to store for evidence. We only have one bay, so we've had to store them in the outside down in vehicle maintenance, which is not ideal for evidence storage. We would also add some secure parking. With additional staffing, we've kind of come to the limit in our parking, in our secure parking for employees. That secure parking also houses our equipment. Our police vehicles cost about $40,000, and then we add an additional $20,000 or so of technology and equipment. So we would want to add some additional covered parking. It would help keep those city assets secure, operationally ready, and hopefully reduce some of our maintenance costs. On the exterior, we would also propose adding a loading dock that was not included in the original building plan. And we would provide some additional egress to Sloan Road for emergency response. That would coincide with also that joint operations center. So we would need that additional access. Another part of the phase, when I talked about the relocation of dispatch, the current dispatch center within the police department would be vacated. So in that area, we would add a real-time crime center. That real-time crime center would be monitored by crime analysts. They would have the ability to provide real-time intelligence to officers on the streets, a little bit different than dispatchers who are dispatching them to their locations, but this would be real-time for criminal apprehension, for development of daily operational plans, and kind of an information hub for officers to reduce crime through the quick identification and apprehension. That would increase overall safety, obviously, for our citizens. And then the last big thing is the need for the police department to have a more tangible presence in the southern part of the city. Over the years, and as far back as the Lee Summit 360 strategic plan, our citizens have indicated that they would like a bigger presence for the police department down south. As you all know, during rush hour or heavy traffic, getting from the north side of the city to the south side of the city can be pretty tough. So the proposal there would be at the currently Station 5 fire department, so at 150 in Windermere. They are currently rebuilding Station 5, and so when they vacate Station 5, the proposal would be for us to remodel that station to a south substation for the police department. We would have uniform presence there. Walk-in reports would be available, pretty much very close to the daily administrative things that you would have in the north part of the city. So, any questions?
One question, was it 2 years ago? Did they get the upgrade? I shouldn't ask you all. Did you get the upgrade on I thought we did an upgrade on the radio and communication systems. We did that
We
completely,
did.
right? Okay, so that's done.
Yes, sir. Pretty close to done. I think there's a few little things, but overall, it's working well. We've utilized it on many occasions. With the parade just recently, we assisted with that, and so we were able to communicate with them and hear the radio. So radio project went really well.
Perfect. Anything else from the commission on that?
So if I could add just a few things to what Major Walters was talking about. One of the things with the joint operations facility that is one of the things that kind of rang with me a little bit on that was that our current emergency operations center is really inadequate for our needs today. And what I mean by that, according to our emergency management officer, i.e. the fire chief, he said it's good for a city of about 40,000. And we're at 105,000 now, and we're continuing to grow. And it's currently located in a facility that's about 48 years old. When you think through all that, and you think through just the way that response to emergencies has changed over that, call it a 50-year period, and how we've adapted and grown as a community, it really is a situation where there's a more efficient, there's a better way to do things, which this joint operations facility being a communication center, a hardened EOC location, as well as improving our traffic operations. That's one of the other big things with this joint operations facility that we currently don't have. So you think of, from a traffic operations standpoint, think of like the MoDOT Scout system. They've got the cameras, and you see on the news in the morning, they flip through those different cameras and the locations, and they're monitoring traffic in real time. Right now, we kind of have a disconnected system. Part of this project would make that a much more robust, a much more real-time traffic operations center that would have a number of operational benefits from responding to an accident, as well as signal timing and things like that. On top of that as well, kind of the network side of it, I'm getting pretty deep for y'all, because I figure you might be interested in it, but on the network side of things, there's a lot of secured network infrastructure and servers and backups and things like that this would help upgrade as well, and provide that redundancy that's really needed. Again, if you just think about the way that things have changed, all the body camera footage and everything that the police department is responsible for, there's all sorts of requirements and everything for that have to be met. So it truly is a situation where we've kind of outgrown our current capabilities. And that's just one of the projects. And so I can talk a little bit more about the rest of them whenever you're ready.
Commissioner Rice, you have a question? Go
I
ahead.
have a question for Major Walters.
Sure.
When you talked about the real-time crime center,
Yes, ma'am.
so the way things are now, when they go through dispatch, that can be picked up on, people can listen to those calls. With this,
You mean, well, we have an
Or when-
encrypted radio now with the new
Okay.
radio. But with that real-time crime center, you're looking at analysts who can kind of look through patterns, trends, work with other agencies, see the things that are maybe coming to our city. You know, we've got the fixed LPRs that we're looking at, so you think about things like vehicles coming into our city that may be stolen autos, things like that, that can immediately be, hey, we have a stolen auto that came in the north side of our city, or a vehicle, suspect vehicle that is common to us and is out at the shopping center. So things like that, that they can immediately do that a dispatch would not, since they take in the calls and are dispatching the calls.
it was very proactive.
Very proactive instead of reactive.
I like that.
Fire away, Mr. Elam, if you want to wrap up the other ones.
All right, I'll go ahead and wrap up a few of the other projects here. Okay. I was really fighting the urge just to take the microphone and just walk around. The podium stabilizes me a little bit, so I don't move too much. Again, on the emergency preparedness side, you can see on the back side, this is where this map is on the back side of the handout that I provided you. But we got the Joint Operations Facility, property acquisition, really for what we call the ARF, the Airport Fire Station. We know that as time goes on, it's in our master plans, it's in the airport business plan and airport master plan as well, that there's going to be a need to have airport rescue firefighting equipment out there. I'm sure I messed up that acronym. But it's not quite ready there at this point, and kind of given some of our experiences with, trying to pre-plan too much on things, we felt that the property acquisition, we know where it's going to go. We don't have the need right now, but that need will be there. But it's probably a little bit further out of the window that we're thinking for these projects, but we know that the property value is just going to keep going up, so now's the right time to buy the property. Already talked about the police and courts buildings. Fire station number 1. So you might be asking, what's fire station number 1? Well, that's currently fire headquarters, and with the Joint Operations Facility, administration would move out of there, and it would become just purely an operational fire station. That building, as I mentioned, is about 48 years old, and we have done a facilities condition assessment for a majority of our buildings in the city's building system, which we currently have over 19 facilities. That facility requires essentially a complete gut and remodel. It's got failing plumbing systems, failing electrical systems. It's had a number of issues over the years. It needs a new roof, needs new HVAC, and it's also not ADA compliant, which is a big issue for our public buildings and public facilities. It did receive an exterior renovation in 2006, and it's got good bones, if you will, good structure to it. So the thought process is, during this process, there will be an evaluation of whether to demo and completely reconstruct or renovate that facility. So there is value in the facility. The location, from an operational standpoint, from what I'm told from the fire department, is really an ideal location. So we want to maintain the location, but need to upgrade the facility to be more usable with everything going on. South Police Station. Then there's another line item on here, facility reinvestment in our other police and fire areas. Again, we have 7 total fire stations. A couple of them are new, a couple of them will be new, but we still have Fire Station 2, Fire Station 6, that, again, we've got HVAC that needs to be replaced, roofs that need to be monitored, and some minor projects. I say minor. They're all capital projects that need to be taken care of. Since I'm talking about facilities, I'm going to skip transportation real quick, and I'm going to go back down. I'm going to go down to city facilities reinvestment for everyone. So on the general municipal side of things, Just like our police and fire, and our parks, our buildings need to be maintained. And as the survey showed, maintenance of our existing buildings is a high priority for our community. Even this facility is a great facility. However, it's approaching 20 years old. And when a commercial building approaches 20 years old, you start having major systems that need to be upgraded. And the roof for City Hall is the original roof. It's $1 million roof that needs to be done. The HVAC systems are all running on the R22 refrigerant that was spoken about earlier. That needs to be changed out. And then just operationally, when this building was designed and built, smartphones didn't exist. Video conferencing technology was a little bit different. And just the overall functionality and use of the space needs to be reconfigured a little bit to be more of a modern city hall. And that's for customer interaction as well as workforce attraction and retention. So with these funds, there would be a significant reinvestment into this facility to propel it into the future. Not to say that it's not a great facility as is, but it's time, and we want to really focus on taking care of what we have and extending the life of those assets. There's several other facilities as well that have similar things going on. Our maintenance facility, they've got some HVAC and some roofs, and so it's not a lot of the very noticeable items, but it's the items that matter and that will extend the longevity and the use of these facilities for many, many years to come. One other item on here that could cause some confusion is what we call the ERP system. That's our enterprise resource planning system, and you'll see it's kind of split into two questions. It's split in the emergency preparedness and the general municipal. That is the best way to describe that is kind of our backbone software application for the city. It runs all of our financial, all of our financial aspects as well as all of our human resources aspects. And our current system is got a limited life left on it. It's only got a couple more years left until it's no longer supported. And so there's security reasons and functionality reasons as to why that system needs to be replaced moving forward. So now the other real exciting stuff, the transportation stuff. This is really a transformational package of transportation improvements that have been talked about for quite some time. This whole package addresses a variety of things from current capacity issues and current safety challenges to future growth, as well as infusing more resources into a program that has been very important to our citizens, the Sidewalk Gap program. We talked about connectivity with the Parks Master Plan, and all throughout the Ignite Comprehensive Plan, we heard a lot about connectivity and sidewalks and everyone's desire for more pedestrian-friendly areas. So that being said, we have a $20 million plus sidewalk gap problem right now in our current inventory, and those gaps are, a lot didn't get constructed here. A sidewalk wasn't required there. They were built at different times. We've got a lot of ADA issues that need to be addressed through that program as well. And so this would add more money into that program and to allow more sidewalk gaps to be completed. Obviously, the two major transportation improvements are Todd George Parkway, extending all the way from Colburn up through Woods Chapel, making that to the full, complete 4-lane section, and being really a complete project, including water lines and things like that. There's some capacity challenges on the existing roadway, and as well as the future development of the PRI property. And then continuing north on that, Lakewood Way, there's been a lot of discussion over Lakewood Way and the safety associated with that particular roadway. These improvements would help address that. Down south, Sheer Parkway. Sheer Parkway, massive arterial roadway that really opens up that southern portion of the community for development. And then on the transportation front too, the last thing I'll touch on, we have airport We have a couple of airport projects listed here, airport property acquisition and airport hangar 2. Hangar 2 is kind of a vital component of the airport business plan moving forward. The city council has already initiated the design work for that hangar on there, and it really is, there's a pent-up demand for that, as well as an opportunity for partnership with Hangar 2 and specifically. Currently working with potential of having a school district partnership with that for part of their aviation program, as well as additional hangar space. And with that, I could keep talking, but I will be quiet and let you all answer questions, or ask questions.
Hey, Ryan, quick question for you. The future tower and the future restaurant, what phases are those in at the airport?
So I don't know the exact phases. The future air traffic control tower, we just went to Public Works Committee, I believe this week. I'm trying to remember if it went to council yet or not, or if it's coming up on Tuesday. But I think maybe it went to council on the 16th to submit the application to the FAA for review of the air traffic control tower program. So once that occurs, there's a number of steps after that to get towards the tower itself. But so I don't know the exact phase, but I know things are in motion for that. Then as far as the restaurant goes, and the rest of the east side development, I think that's going to be driven by private development interest in the area. But Hangar 2 and the infrastructure associated with that portion, which the infrastructure is under design currently, and Hangar 2 would be a part of this, are big drivers in both of those.
This is a question about the bonds themselves.
Yeah.
So at some point, you will probably talk to underwriters about the issuance and trying to get the best rates for these bonds. Do you do that before it goes to the voters, or is that done after approval?
So that would be that would be when the bonds are ready to be issued. What we're going to the voters for is for the voter authorization to issue up to that amount of bonds. So the vote doesn't guarantee or lock in a timing of the issuance itself. So the issuance is able to be, I'll say, managed in order to hit appropriate timing to, one, maintain the debt levy at its current rate, and to hit the best market conditions to meet the needs at the time. So I kind of mentioned at the very beginning that, it's a $186 million authorization. There's not a plan to issue $186 million worth of bonds at one time. It will likely be every couple of years, we'll issue different tranches for those bonds, different series.
Okay, thanks.
So does this replace an existing program that's sunsetting, since this is a no tax increase, or?
So I wouldn't say it replaces an existing program. What it does is, as we pay down debt on there, then we open up capacity for that. And another way of thinking of it is that, so we've got additional capacity that we can then get authorization to use and maintain that debt levy. If that drops, then that debt levy can drop, if you will. Currently, I believe we have about 2 years of debt left, and then we would be, we'd have no outstanding bonds associated with it. But that's a situation that's probably better answered by our finance department.
Okay.
But there's reasons why. There's reasons why this approach, having a more consistent approach, ends up being more beneficial in the long run and can take advantage of those market conditions and things like that to put the tax dollars to use.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's just the last time I saw one of these was a school. It was a school issued program, right? And that was where one of them sunsetted, and so we were swapping in another one just to take the place of it. So All sounds good. What's the rough timing of, hopefully we get a good vote on this. What's the rough timing on being able to do all these different improvements that are here?
So right now, we're looking at about a 10-year window.
Okay.
The actual projects will all come through the capital improvement plan. Some will start immediately. Some will start in the next couple of years. But within the next 10 years, every one of these projects is expected to at least be underway. Some of these are going to take a really long time. Sheer Parkway, for example, that's a big multi-year project. I mean, it could be 5 to 10 years for that project itself, pretty easily.
Cool. Well, let's get it done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Major Walters, for spending the evening with us. I know you're overjoyed. It was great. It was fun. Any roundtable? I just wanted to share, you guys can talk away, but I was going to share with you that our TV ratings have to be going up because we have my two little neighbor friends I mentioned before, Max and Callie, watch us every other Thursday. So our
I'm so
ratings
proud
gotta
of-
be going up. Gotta be going up.
Okay, I had a question for David. Just a clarification, actually. So I was at the tax review committee, and they announced to us that all of our jobs we have to reapply for our committee appointments. That doesn't apply to the commission, correct? Just the committees. Oh, here comes Ryan.
Yes, that's correct. The Planning Commission and other, what we call statutory boards and commission, were held separate from those other rules that were put forth. So Planning Commission, nothing on the structure of the Planning Commission had changed, still subject to mayor appointments and moving forward.
Thank you, Ryan.
Commissioner Arst?
I was just going to talk very briefly about the last CEDC meeting. We talked about affordable housing and just how do we define that? And the city is going to look into more, I believe, develop a metrics of things that we can start talking about, because it's been fairly ambiguous, and we talk about it a lot. And in that, we also talked about ADUs. I mean, that was a separate conversation, but ADUs would be more affordable. And then some of the guidelines for them now, that they're allowed in the downtown corridor, and the lots have to be 15,000 feet or greater. Right now, that's allowed, but the city's looking into, isn't that right, Josh? It's, okay. The city's looking into getting some more information together for council, and just so we can start discussing it. One of the things we talked about were the materials for the ADUs, and are there alternative materials that can be used that aren't the same as the actual house? Oh, does everybody, accessory dwelling units. Sorry. My son's in the military, and he uses so many acronyms, I can't even understand him. But I thought the discussion was really good, because it seems like we're starting to define more of this. And Josh, if you want to share some of that.
I just wanted to clarify that instead of us going directly to council, we would go back to CEDC with a formalized ordinance, and then we'd have to come to Planning Commission as well. So several steps to go on that, and we'll be before this body before that goes forward.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, did you say that the current requirement for downtown is 15,000 square foot lots to get an ADU?
Correct. It's threading an eye of a needle with a rope.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why it's being looked at.
Well, I mean, okay. All right.
Everybody else good? Yeah. Staff, you got anything? We are adjourned. Yeah. They're pushing.